U.S. is delivering remarks. Let's listen in.
Only further demonstrates that fact. Earlier today, I was in the Situation Room with President Biden and our national security team as we monitored the attack in real time and ensured that the protection of U.S. personnel in the region is paramount. I fully support President Biden's order for the U.S. military to shoot down Iranian missiles targeting Israel, just as we did in April. We are still assessing the impact, but initial indications are that Israel, with our assistance, was able to defeat this attack. Our joint defenses have been effective, and this operation and successful cooperation saved many innocent lives. As I have said, I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist militias. My commitment to the security of Israel is unwavering. And let us be clear, Iran is not only a threat to Israel, Iran is also a threat to American personnel in the region, American interests, and innocent civilians across the region who suffer at the hands of Iran-based and backed terrorist proxies. We will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend U.S. forces and interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. And we will continue to work with our allies and partners to disrupt Iran's aggressive behavior and hold them accountable. Thank you.
Madam Vice President, how do you prevent this filter going over the...
President Trump called this potentially part of World War III.
Should they retaliate?
All right, so you were just listening to Vice President Kamala Harris there giving remarks. She is in Washington, D.C., and she said many things in top of the line there. She said it is paramount to ensure the safety of the U.S. personnel in that region. She also said that they were able to defeat this attack along with Israel with the U.S. assistance. She said that that saved lives and that she would always ensure Israel can defend themselves, and her commitment to that remains unwavering. I want to bring in ABC News' Jay O'Brien, who's also there at the White House. And one thing that she also ended those remarks with, Jay, noting that she didn't take any questions, she said that we want to make sure that we can work against Iran's aggressive behavior. What exactly does that mean here? What is the White House going to do here in the interim as we hear a lot of talk about retaliation? Because Secretary of State Antony Blinken had really harsh words earlier today. He said this is totally unacceptable and the entire world should condemn this. So how will they work against Iran's aggressive behavior here?
Well, there's two entities right now, Kana, really trying to calibrate their responses to all of this. One is the U.S., which was not directly attacked here, but helped Israel defend itself from this attack, helped shoot down about a dozen or so of those ballistic missiles. At least they launched about a dozen missiles to intercept those ballistic missiles shot by Iran. So the U.S. trying to figure out what they will do. Will they sanction Iran? Will they do something further? And then, of course, Israel is also trying to calibrate its response and what degree of military response will it have to all of this? Will it go so far as to bomb, for instance, an Iranian port that is critical to Iran's oil industry, as Lindsey Graham, for instance, has called on Israel to do and has called on the U.S. to support Israel in doing so? Will they take a little bit more of a lower key response? That remains to be seen. And one of the things we've seen is U.S. officials say that they are in close touch with their Israeli counterparts on exactly what Israel should do. We have seen the administration in recent days try to say that they do not want any kind of situation to spiral out of control. They do not want a wider war. And while Israel has every right to defend itself and has every right to go after various terrorist assets in that region, they do not want this situation to turn into a wider regional conflict. And that is, in a sense, without saying that directly, what we heard the vice president say the U.S. defended Israel, echo, in a sense, what President Biden said earlier in the day, which is that this attack failed in his view. He said it was defeated. He called it insignificant. That is a means of trying to, in a way, lower the temperature in this region and not stoke too much of a direct response by Israel. But again, the ball is really in Israel's court here, how it chooses to respond and exactly what tempo it chooses to take.
And we just got a statement in here from Benjamin Netanyahu, who said Iran made a big mistake tonight and will pay for it, among other things. Jay O'Brien, our thanks to you. I want to bring in Ann Flaherty, our senior reporter there at the Pentagon as well. And so you just heard the vice president reiterate her commitment to safeguarding U.S. personnel in the region. And she said that also her commitment to helping Israel defend itself remains unwavering. I guess I'm curious as to your thoughts on her remarks there and how the Pentagon will be moving forward to, again, ensure the safety of our American assets overseas.
Right. So those are the two priorities that the U.S. has right now. There are 40,000 troops in the region. They want to make sure that they don't get caught in any crosshairs, Israel retaliating and then Iran retaliating back. So, of course, they have concern for those troops that are already there on ships. They're in bases in Iraq and Syria. And so the U.S. has said repeatedly, we want to make sure that those troops are safe and that they are not attacked. We have heard from General Pat Ryder this afternoon that there have been no new attacks since, at least today and through the week so far. So they want to make sure that that happens. The other thing that they want to make sure is that Israel is defended. I don't see any appetite in this building for offensive operations and taking part in helping Israel attack Iran. The U.S. simply saying, we need to assess the damage that's been done. We need to talk with our Israeli counterparts and see what should happen next. So the message there is that retaliation could look very different. It could be economic, for example. It could be sanctions. It could also be military response. But of course, the U.S. trying to take a more measured approach to all of this, not being clear yet what exactly Israel will do.
Yeah, that was very interesting. All right, Jay and Ann, our thanks to both of you. And coming up next here on ABC News Live, we have more breaking coverage of this major escalation in the Middle East after Iran fires a barrage of missiles again at Israel.
Harris, Walz, Trump, Vance. Now tonight, with just weeks to go until Election Day, the vice presidential candidates face each other and face off. Tim Walz, J.D. Vance, the vice presidential debate. The night starts at 8 p.m. Eastern, live with the ABC News event special, The Race for the White House, with David Muir and the ABC News Powerhouse political team. Tonight, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Start Here. What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions.
Operational nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi. Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you. David, good to meet you.
Ismail? David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
I watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Sex, lies, and a double murder.
2 small children were kidnapped.
Your mom and dad are gonna be right here waiting on you when you get home.
When the twist came, then it completely exploded.
It's one of the craziest stories I've ever heard, and people don't know about it.
What kind of mother would kill her own children?
After nearly 30 years in prison, Smith now has a chance at parole. Could the woman once dubbed the most hated mom in America go free?
Killer Mom, now streaming on Hulu. You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live. Breaking news, exclusives, live reporting across the globe. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Welcome back. Of course, we are tracking the latest out of the Middle East for you after a barrage of missiles was launched from Iran toward Israel. Today's strike coming after an Israeli attack on Hezbollah infrastructure in Lebanon. The Pentagon saying that Iran launched about 200 missiles at Israel, but the IDF has put the number of projectiles closer to 180. Earlier, sources did say that they were expecting Iran to launch up to 250 in 2 separate waves at 4 targets in Israel that included Mossad headquarters as well as 3 air bases. I want to bring in ABC News' Jay O'Brien for us. So, Jay, we've been monitoring, of course, what's been coming out of the White House as well. We know that President Biden and Vice President Harris watched this all unfold in the Situation Room. And I know that President Biden just addressed the media here saying, at least so far, this attack appears in his mind to have been defeated and ineffective. What more are we hearing, Jay?
Yeah, exactly right, Kana. So the president and the vice president following this as it unfolded in the Situation Room, following this minute by minute, their staff said, as the U.S. assisted Israel in shooting down some of these missiles. The president, speaking with reporters just minutes ago, here's what he said.
Before I began, I wanted to say a few words about Iran's missile attack on Israel today. At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and U.S. military. It's also a testament to intensive planning between the United States and Israel to anticipate and defend against the brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel. And I've spent the morning and part of the afternoon in the Situation Room and meeting with my whole national security team and consulting with the Israelis indirectly because, in terms of their impact on us. And the national security team has been, as I said, in constant contact with Israeli officials and their counterparts, and is going to continue to be brought to me throughout the day. We need to be all working together. That's the new coordination we have going.
So, Kana, the headline out of all of this were those 2 words you mentioned earlier, which is the president called this attack ineffective, and he says it was defeated. Nonetheless, we have heard administration officials say that this was a significant attack, and certainly Israel has said it will respond. So this is the administration trying to downplay, in a sense, this incident, saying it was defeated, calling it insignificant, but still that open question, what will Israel do? Another thing is we do not know today if President Biden will speak with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The two have had a chilly relationship as of late, but they say their staffs in the Prime Minister's office and the White House are communicating very closely. Kana.
All right, Jay O'Brien, our thanks to you. And thank you for streaming with us. I'm Kana Whitworth, and we have a lot more news ahead here on ABC News Live. Complete breaking coverage of the escalating crisis in the Middle East and Iran's retaliatory missile attack on Israel. Also tonight, we'll have full team coverage of the CBS News vice presidential debate between Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance starting tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on ABC News Live.
Walz, Trump, Vance. Now tonight, with just weeks to go until Election Day, the vice presidential candidates face each other and face off. Tim Walz, J.D. Vance, the vice presidential debate. The night starts at 8 p.m. Eastern, live with the ABC News event special, The Race for the White House, with David Muir and the ABC News Powerhouse political team. Tonight, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC.
Tonight, the deadly aftermath of Helene, plus the strike that could push prices higher, plus Vance, Walz, the VP debate, and the race for the White House. World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Start Here. ABC's David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. More Americans watch ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir than any other newscast. What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our combat operations center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from...
Hi. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ismail? David.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
From Fulton County Court in Atlanta, I'm Aaron Katursky. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
I'm Kate Whitworth here in Los Angeles, and we have some breaking news on ABC News Live. The Middle East on edge after a barrage of missiles was launched from Iran toward Israel. Today's strike coming after an Israeli attack on Hezbollah infrastructure in Lebanon. The Pentagon saying Iran launched about 200 missiles at Israel, but the IDF has put the number of projectiles closer to 180. Now, earlier sources did say that they were expecting Iran to launch about 250 missiles in 2 separate waves at 4 targets in Israel, including Mossad headquarters and 3 air bases. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps confirming responsibility for that missile attack shortly after it happened, calling it retaliation for different assassinations carried out by Israel. One U.S. official telling ABC News that the U.S. intercepted some of the Iranian missiles, but it's unclear how many. Also, one Israeli official telling ABC News that there will be a significant response and, quote, what Iran has suffered so far is only a promo. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issuing a statement just a short time ago saying, quote, Iran made a big mistake tonight and will pay for it. I'm going to bring in ABC News' Inez de la Katara, who's live for us in Tel Aviv, along with ABC News foreign correspondent Marcus Moore, who's live in Beirut. ABC News' Jay O'Brien there at the White House, ABC News senior national policy reporter Ann Flaherty at the Pentagon, and ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy. I'm so happy to have you all here with me. And Inez, starting with you, you're on the ground in Israel. What is the latest right now on Iran's strike there? What are officials saying in terms of the damage that was caused? Any possible casualties as well?
Yeah, Kena, so still waiting for more information on casualties. The initial reports from the IDF was that there were no casualties. There are reports now that there may have been some light injuries, so we're waiting for more information on that front. When it comes to damage, the IDF says the damage was limited, and we saw those interceptions, throughout the night. We know the U.S. participated in those interceptions. Most of the missiles, most of the 180 missiles that were fired were intercepted, but we do understand that there were some sites that were hit. So one of our teams was just out just north of Tel Aviv, about a 20-minute drive from Tel Aviv in a northern suburb, and they saw a massive crater right in the middle of a boulevard there, about 30 feet deep. There appear to have been no casualties there, but still, a remarkable site. We have been seeing reports around Israel of potential damage to certain buildings, other craters, video circulating on social media showing those craters. So again, working for more information on that front. We do know that the Iranians were also targeting Israeli military sites, and there is video that has been circulating as well showing explosions at those military sites. We're waiting to hear from the IDF what the damage may have been at those sites in central Israel. It's also possible that the IDF just won't tell us what the damage was at those sites. But all in all, again, the IDF saying limited damage, and for now, no reported casualties.
All right, Inez, thank you. And Marcus, you're there on the ground in Lebanon. Of course, all eyes on that border area. What's the reaction been like in Lebanon, of course, just hours after that limited IDF ground incursion against Hezbollah there?
Kana, there was a swift reaction from people here in Beirut. We heard spontaneous gunfire into the air, this happening in the streets. And there were also parts of Beirut where people were in the streets celebrating. They were cheering, some dancing to music, and really celebrating this moment of Iran firing those 180 missiles, as Inez was just talking about. Of course, all of this coming at a time of heightened tension. As you know, Israel has been carrying out a number of strikes in and around Beirut and also southern Lebanon. including today. We heard several explosions and on several occasions saw thick smoke billowing into the air just behind us here. Most of those strikes happening in the southern suburb of Beirut. The question now that a number of people have is what will be Israel's response? And beyond that, how will that response add to an already volatile situation and the risk of this expanding and already escalating conflict? And at this point, no one really knows the answer to that, Kana, but I can tell you that a lot of people are concerned, both Lebanese Americans, and also American citizens who are here in Lebanon right now. We learned from the State Department today that about 6,000 Americans have registered with the State Department, some of them expressing an interest in leaving the country as this continues to unfold. But Kana, we know from the State Department right now there are no plans for there to be evacuation flights. The State Department telling people to follow the guidance, and that includes securing commercial flights while they can. But Kana, those flights are few and far between at this point.
They certainly are. And again, yeah, reiterating what we heard there from the State Department in terms of Americans that are on soil there. Also, Jay, I'm curious about what we're hearing now out of the White House. And we listened to both President Biden speak as well as Vice President Kamala Harris. And she said that we will continue to work with our allies and partners to disrupt Iran's aggressive behavior and to hold them accountable. Her language, though, Jay, it's a little bit different than what we heard from National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who said severe consequences. He talked about severe consequences here and said they'll work with Israel to make that case. So I'm curious what you're hearing from the White House now.
Well, President Biden also spoke about this just moments ago, and the two words he used that I stuck out the most about this incident were, quote, that this attack was, quote, defeated, and he called it ineffective, Kana. And that appears to be a clear attempt to try to bring the temperature down here. He essentially said that Israel, along with U.S. partnership, was able to defeat this attack. Israel intercepting almost all of these missiles, and the U.S. providing support in doing so as well, shooting about a dozen interceptor missiles to intercept those from various destroyer naval ships. But point being is what the White House has said is that President Biden and the Vice President followed this minute by minute from the Situation Room. Israel's exact response here, as you've heard over the course of the broadcast, as Inez just talked about, is very much unclear. But I can tell you in recent days, what the White House has tried to do and what they tried to do today was say that Israel has every right to defend itself, has every right to go after various terrorist groups that threaten Israel, but also this clear desire to make sure that this incident doesn't divulge the region into a much more wider, much more chaotic conflict, Kana.
And you'll remember that he almost, during that attack in April, said take it as a win because there wasn't damage or destruction, a lot of it caused by that attack in April. But now we're hearing really different things from Republicans as well, like Senator Lindsey Graham urging the Biden administration to coordinate an overwhelming response with Israel, starting with Iran's ability to refine oil. So, Ann, I'm curious as to now what you're hearing from the Pentagon, as we know that we have heard time and time again that there was a defensive coalition led by the United States, and it was part, as what Jay touched on, what the destroyers did there. So can you bring us up to speed on that?
So we have been told, Kana, that 2 naval destroyers did fire off some dozen interceptors to try to take down these Iranian missiles. Now, they have not said publicly how successful they were. We do have one official telling us that there were some successful interceptions. We just don't know how many out of those dozen. Now, we do know that the U.S. is trying to increase the number of forces in the region. We heard earlier this week that they are sending additional air power to the Middle East. I was told that not all of those troops are in place by the time the attack began.
And Mick, I'm also curious as to your thoughts here, as we're also getting word in both Hamas and the Houthis there in Yemen are releasing statements in support of Iran's attack on Israel. So now you have these Iranian proxies supporting what was just done there. So what does this all indicate to you when you look at the targets that Iran was aiming for inside Israel? How significant would you say this escalation is?
Okay, it certainly was a significant escalation, but I think it's fair to say that it was defeated and it was ineffective. The targets they were looking at, they highlighted, were the Mossad headquarters and other military facilities. So they're trying to highlight that they're not targeting civilians. Of course, if you've ever been to the Mossad headquarters, it's right essentially in the middle of Tel Aviv. It's in a suburb, so that it is surrounded by civilian buildings. But it was ineffective. So the question now is, what is Israel going to do? They said a significant response. Iran opened the door by this attack, even though they caused little damage, as everybody has pointed out, as Inez pointed out. But that doesn't mean that Israel has to be the same. So they're going to look at energy infrastructure, probably Bandar Abbas port facility, for example. They may even look at the nuclear facility. So this is going to come up shortly, potentially within the next 24 to 48 hours.
All right, Marcus, Ann, Jay, Inez, and Mick, our thanks to all of you. I also want to bring in now Aaron David Miller, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Also with us is Alex Vitanka, Director of Iran Program at the Middle East Institute. Gentlemen, thank you for being here with us. And so, Aaron, look first to you. The U.S. Warned of this retaliatory strike some hours before it happened. In your mind, how prepared was Israel for something like this, knowing that they were doing their limited ground invasion into Lebanon at the same time?
I mean, very. And the Israelis had to bake into their assumption cake that essentially the Iranians would respond at some point. And look, the other reality is, unlike the April 13-14 attack, where they did not use large numbers of ballistic missiles, it only takes 12 minutes for a ballistic missile to reach Israel. It takes much longer for the cruise missiles. So they launched twice as many ballistic missiles. And even though they targeted Mossad headquarters, as your reporter suggested, when you launch that kind of attack, you can't be sure that civilians wouldn't be expected. So I suspect in the Israeli mind, this will be viewed as an escalation, and I would anticipate in the next day or so a very severe Israeli response.
And Alex, what are your thoughts on that? Also noting that sources did say that they were expecting Iran to launch up to 250 missiles in 2 separate waves at these targets.
Right. Great to be with you. Look, I think the Iranians are saying right now, if there is an Israeli retaliation, and I agree there will be an Israeli retaliation, but Iran is saying it will hit Israel again. So we are in a very dangerous situation right now. I think the Iranian calculation is the following. They feel that Prime Minister Netanyahu is going for the ultimate kill. He wants regime change in Tehran. And I think the Iranian leadership really fear a regional war, and certainly war with Israel that will include the United States. But it seems, listening to Iranian officials in Tehran and the analysts in terms of what they're saying, the Iranian position is that if you don't stop to the extent that you can do it, the Israelis in Lebanon and elsewhere in the region, the Israelis are aiming for Tehran itself. They want regime change. Prime Minister Netanyahu's video and sort of message to the Iranian people was Israel's coming to free you from the Islamic Republic, and the leadership in Tehran is very much worried about that and taking Netanyahu very seriously.
All right, Alex Vitanka and Aaron David Miller, our thanks to both of you for sharing your expertise. Also, we know that we're just hours away from the first and very likely the only vice presidential debate in this election. We have some live images for you from the venue in New York, where Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will face off for the first time tonight. The VP nominee is expected to go head-to-head over top issues in this presidential election. And unlike the debate between Harris and Trump, candidates' microphones will not be muted. Tonight's debate coming with just 35 days to go until Election Day. It could alter the course of American history. I want to bring in ABC News senior reporter Catherine Faulders live for us at the debate venue in New York, and ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran, who's live for us in Springfield, Ohio. Glad to have you both here with us. So first of all, Catherine, in terms of what is at stake here for these two VP candidates, and what are the expectations for each campaign? Because we know some analysts think that debates don't necessarily move the needle that much. However, you can really get a glimpse of the personality of some of these candidates in a debate like this.
Yeah, I think this has the potential to be slightly different here, and I think that's for a couple reasons. Of course, one, we have two candidates who, yes, have been introduced to the American people, but haven't been able to show the American people who they are in a debate setting, for example. We've had that poll that came out that shows that Walz is less known than Vance, so this is his time to, again, introduce himself to the voters, if you will. Now, look, both sides are downplaying expectations as they go into this, but the reality of this is they know that the stakes are high for a number of reasons. Of course, We know that voters go to the polls in November, typically to vote for the top of the ticket. That's Harris and Donald Trump. At the same time, these two really haven't introduced themselves, but also are dealing with a situation, obviously, in Israel and Iran that is unfolding literally in real time. So we know that they, of course, have prepped for this. They've been behind the scenes doing mock debates. They have stand-ins for, of course, their opponent. But how do they answer these critical questions on foreign policy as it relates to Israel, as it relates to Iran? You and I were talking earlier about Ukraine and Russia, for example. How does Vance, in particular, answer those questions when Trump has offered very few details on his foreign policy? So all of that will be interesting to watch tonight.
Right. How do they answer those questions without getting out in front of the candidate for president? Terry, immigration, as we know, a key issue in this election, certainly will be in this debate. So tell me what you're watching for.
Well, Gina, there's no question that from the beginning of this campaign, through all of the ups and downs and all these astonishing news cycles that we've had, immigration has remained really one of the top issues for voters. It remains the #1 issue that voters volunteer, unprompted, that they say is important. And here I am in Springfield, Ohio. It's not a border issue anymore, as it has been in previous elections. Trump put this city on the map. You'll remember when he said that people here were eating cats and dogs and pets, and there's no evidence that didn't happen. It has come to stand, however, for this hot-button issue. J.D. Vance is a senator from Ohio. These are his constituents. When confronted with the lack of evidence for Trump's charges, he pivots and he says, but there are real issues for the people in Springfield and across the country who are dealing with this massive influx of immigrants, legal and more illegal, unlawfully here in the country during the Biden administration. That is a problem for Kamala Harris, and it does play into what really is Trump's general theme, order. That there's a sense that there's been disorder at the border, disorder around the world, disorder in Washington, and Trump is selling himself as a strongman who can fix that. Kana?
All right, Terry Moran and Catherine Falders, our thanks to both of you. And coming up next here, we have more coverage of tonight's high-stakes vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. I'll speak with the chairman of the RNC. That's straight ahead.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions. Operational nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it. Not a tear in it. How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work. Hi. Where are you? Where are you? Appreciate you. Thank you, David. Good to meet you. Ismail? David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
I watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
This version of me. America's #1 most watched daytime talk show is ABC's The View.
You all heard it here first. I love it. I'm there for it.
Hot topics, political views.
That's what we're about.
Voices that matter. It all goes down right here.
That's why it's called the what? The View. I love it. I'm all in. Second that. This is going to be must-see TV, and so much could happen.
A Hollywood studio want us to make a movie of our podcast.
It's a fabulous cast.
Action. I'm nervous playing you. The fearlessness, the complexity.
Oh, stop. Unless you had more to say.
I don't need an algorithm to tell me that this is box office gold.
Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and for bundle subscribers on Disney+.
And welcome Welcome back. We're just hours away from the first vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. We have a live look for you at the debate venue in New York City, likely to be the last debate between any candidate before the November election. And there's only 35 days to go until voters officially cast their ballots across the country in an election that could alter the course of American history. Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley is joining me now ahead of this. Michael, glad to have you here with us. And I do want to pass along with you a memo here from House GOP leadership on what just happened in the Middle East. In part of it, they note that they want to make it clear that there should be decisive economic and potentially military ramifications for these actions. Of course, they're talking about Iran's attack now on Israel. So I'm curious, what is the Republican Party's stance on these latest developments in the Middle East? And how do you expect J.D. Vance to address that issue on behalf of the potential Trump-Vance administration?
America needs to stand with Israel, simply put. I think that what we're looking at right now with all of the unrest in that region is because America has been weak, because we have not shown our friendship and to our ally, Israel, like we need to be. And I think that Kamala Harris has been playing on both sides of that fence, and it's not just sending signals to her political allies and targets in Michigan. It's sending signals all around the world that America is not necessarily going to stand with Israel. I would expect that J.D. Vance, if he's asked about this tonight, would confirm that America needs to be strong enough at home and abroad to protect the interests of our country as well as our allies, and that we will stand with Israel.
We know the #1 responsibility of a vice presidential pick is to do no harm, right? We also know that Vance has gotten in some hot water with some of his comments since becoming the nominee. Can we expect him to perhaps walk back some of those comments, or do you anticipate him doubling down?
I think what he's going to do tonight is focus on issues that really, truly matter to American voters. Are we going to have a strong southern border? Are we going to have a strong economy? And are we going to be able to, strong enough to defend ourselves and our allies around the world in the face of all of the different challenges that we have right now? Those are the issues that the American voters care about, and he's going to talk directly to them.
We certainly know that Republicans have been advised to stick to the policy issues, many of which are popular with millions of Americans. But I just respectfully ask again, do you think that he will walk back some of his comments?
I think what he's going to do is talk about the issues that the American voters care about. The American voters right now are very concerned that Kamala Harris cast the tie-breaking vote on $2.5 trillion worth of unnecessary inflationary spending, which has put grocery prices, housing prices, and gasoline prices through the roof and are making it very difficult for every American family to get to the end of the month. I think that he's going to talk about the issues with the southern border, the fact that Kamala Harris, as the border czar, has led the charge for 94 executive actions to dismantle the most secure southern border that we've ever had and allow 10 or 12 or 15 million illegal immigrants to come across the border, tens of thousands of those being convicted murderers and rapists. So we have real issues that need to be addressed, and I expect that J.D. Vance is going to come out and address those issues and talk about the issues that the American people care about.
Look, I've heard it said in terms of Donald Trump that his policies speak for themselves. The thing is, this is a debate. These candidates need to be the ones speaking for themselves tonight. So in terms of favorability ratings, right, some of J.D. Vance's low favorability ratings could be because of some of these comments that he's made, sharing with you that according to 538, J.D. Vance is unpopular by a negative 11-point net favorability rating. Tim Walz popular by a positive 4 with the American people. So what do you think he could do tonight to turn that around?
Well, I think he can talk about things like the southern border. I mean, right now, what we have is tens of thousands of illegal immigrants that are convicted felons, convicted rapists, convicted murderers that are in the United States. North Carolina and other southern states are completely being flooded out right now, and Kamala Harris and President Biden have been completely AWOL. They've not been to those states. Donald Trump has already been down there for it. We are seeing Iran firing missiles at Israel in the middle of the night over there. The world right now is very unsettled, and we need leadership back in the White House. That is the issue that really needs to be on the table, and that's what I expect J.D. Vance is going to talk about.
All right, well, we will certainly watch. Michael Whatley, a pleasure to have you on with us. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Of course, now we'll have full team coverage of the CBS News vice presidential debate between Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance starting tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on ABC News Live. And coming up next here on ABC News Live, we have more breaking details on that missile attack in Israel today and why Iran says it took aim in the first place. We have the latest on that major escalation in the Middle East.
From Hollywood, it's Dancing with the Stars.
You know who I am, ain't had to say my name. Stack it up like Tetris, but this money ain't a game. I get money, I'm a star. I get money, I'm a star.
Dancing with the Stars returns for a 2-night event starting Monday, October 7th.
Welcome back.
Are you ready? Tell me, are you ready?
You were pregnant?
I keep trying to tell him.
I'm gonna sue you.
Your lawyers know where to find me.
Tonight, with just weeks to go until Election Day, watch the Vice President